than my physical body. Because I am more than physical matter, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires.
I do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. I do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I am the void one.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
Broadcasting live from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void live, and sorry, I just got left a chance to show, so I'm scrambling to get up in here. But we're up in here, and thanks for joining us tonight, wherever you're listening from across the web, whether it's on TalkStream Live, tune in, the radio station, or YouTube. It doesn't really matter. Thank you guys for joining us. It means the world to join us every night that you're here. And looks like we got a new sub too, so that's cool. Jenny, thank you for subbing. And yeah, man, that was fun. I was just on Chance's show. I got to meet Slick Dissident. Is that his name? Really cool dude. And we had a pretty deep conversation. So if you want to check that out, if you missed it, go to the Interverse podcast on YouTube. He's been around about as long as I've been around doing this thing. And it was a pretty deep discussion. So yeah. And then, I mean, just as soon as I got off that thing, I came here. So I'm still kind of, what I guess you could say, like starting the show, right? But here's the thing. I found out some information last night while kind of diddling around, and I know that we've done the Explorers Project and we've been listening to that, but man, what a find. This book that I found that I think we should dive into. There was a guy back in the 1920s, you know, who I consider possibly might be the OG of astral travelers. His name is Sylvan J Muldoon. He wrote a book on astral travel in the 1920s. And the stuff that he talks about is fascinating. And I almost started recording it, but I thought, man, I just want to share some of this stuff with my audience. And it's some pretty interesting stuff. And we'll get into that here in just a minute. I wanted to do the real quick stuff here. So thanks, Chris. Big shout out to Chris for joining the Patreon. Thanks, brother. All of the links to join those things should be in the description. All of the abilities to donate are there. We got stream elements now. We got a new website, new merch, flip-flops and hoodies, man. That's what I want to see everybody in. It's just flip-flops and hoodies. That would be the greatest thing in the world. Sir Wolf, Howard, Sudi, Domek, you crazy son of a bitch. Domek sent me a video the other day of him jumping off a roof in a sumo suit. Dutchy, Jane, Gypsy Jenny. Am I missing anybody here? Ari the cat. Yeah, thanks. And all the people listening on the station, the lurkers, etc., etc. Yeah, so I've been learning a lot about the etheric double, more than I thought. And this is why this subject matter is so fascinating to me, because the projection of the astral body is not just a small thing. And I try to minimalize it as much as I can so that I could help people understand it as much as possible. But the things that I'm learning from OG astral travelers like this guy, Muldoon, is amazing. Listen to this preface to this book, all right? You got to think what the 1920s was like when you were like back then. You definitely couldn't go around telling everybody, oh, I'm an astral traveler, right? I get out of body. That's not something you go around and say around that time, you know? Anyways, let me just fix a couple of things here with the sound. I've been having to adjust stuff, man. This mic is so old. This mic is like the Glock of radio mics, but it's actually starting to get old. Okay. Here's the preface to this. When my first out-of-body experience occurred, I was but 12, so young and immature in mind that I did not realize their magnitude. The occurrences came about involuntarily and repeated themselves frequently until I became so accustomed to them that, as a matter of fact, I soon regarded them as nothing extraordinary and seldom mentioned them even to members of my own family, to say nothing of keeping a record of them, although I had been urged to do so by many interested persons. I had been told by persons professing to know that conscious projection of the astral body was nothing unusual and that many psychics could produce it at will. I, too, wanted to be able to produce it at will, and I admit that I was envious of those who I had heard could do so. So I began a search for someone who could produce the phenomenon voluntarily, but my search proved fruitless, and eventually I concluded that I could not find that someone I was looking for. Thus, I began to experiment with the phenomenon myself, and in this book you will find the results of my experiments. Although we are living in the 20th century, we still have with us the intolerance of the Middle Ages, and I am not optimistic enough to believe that a great many will read without prejudice about what I have to say. I have written this work with the idea of giving results of my findings to other students of the occult. So back then, like nowadays, the out-of-body experience is just the out-of-body experience, right? It is not a thing of the occult, but back then it definitely was, right? Jenny G, cool. Back then it was. If you talked about out-of-body stuff, you might as well be an occultist and a magician or whatever. So that's why I guess the only people that he could talk to about it back then were students of the occult. So unfortunately, many occultists are of the belief that what is claimed to be conscious astral projection, here's the kicker, is nothing more nor less than a dream. I am well aware of the fact that one must first experience conscious astral projection before he can believe in it, and I confess that I should not accept it as true myself, perhaps, and had I not experienced it and now know it to be true. The skeptic says, I want the proof, the objective proof, then I will believe it. And the projector, the astral projector, replies, you cannot have objective proof. You must experience it. Then you will have the proof. The argument that the projector cannot prove to the skeptic that it is not a dream is of no avail, for neither can the skeptic prove to the projector that it is a dream. Thus, argument is useless as arguing the matter of first cause or last effect. This is a guy from the 1920s. So he's saying the same things I've been telling you. There is no proof objectively. The only proof you're ever going to get is the moment you experience it, and then you will know. And that is the nature of gnosis, understanding a deep mystery to the point that you know it, not just believe it. You've experienced it and you know it to be true. And no matter how much you know this truth, you'll never be able to objectively convince a scientist or a materialist that this is a real thing. And it is maddening, but that's the way it goes, right? So he goes on to say, pretty impressed. This is actually from the 20s. He goes on to say, I stand on a clear-cut issue. I say experience it. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. I have not tried to conceal anything nor resorted to pseudo-arguments about the dangers involved, which is a common characteristic of most writers on the subject. I have given the specific methods for bringing about the projection of the astral body as I know them, and I am willing to have the truth of my statements judged squarely by the results obtained through the practice of these methods. So he's standing on what he's saying. He's like, if you do what I tell you to do, I stand on the fact that you're more than likely going to have an experience. And if you don't, well, then I guess you're not doing it right. You want proof, and I say you can have it, but you must experience it. You want to know how you can experience it, and I tell you how to go about it. I can do no more. In this book, I have related many of my experiences. However, the experiences I have given do not in any way represent all which I have had. A book that size could scarcely hold the accounts of all of them. I could never have gleaned the information which is contained herein by the few experiences which I have quoted. The average human being is not interested in the experience of others. Listen to this. Listen to the truth of this. The average human being is not interested in the experience of others. He or she is interested in their own experience. And I here presupposed in writing this book that the reader wishes to know just how the phenomena is produced and not merely to read experiences. Although, as I have stated, I am not optimistic enough to believe that many will read what I have to say without prejudice. I am optimistic enough to believe that no one could give the methods which I have outlined a conscientious and thorough trial and not obtain results. So this guy is saying, if you do what I tell you, I thoroughly believe you're going to get results. That's a little bit different than what the Monroe Institute says. They say, don't expect anything. Just kind of let all that stuff go, right? Do not try to judge the book by reason alone. Judge it by experiment. I could take some quotes out of this and turn these into like sayings or tattoos. I want no one to accept my word for what I have written. I say, experience it. I follow the formula and judge the merits of my statements afterwards. That is the time to judge. ... That is the time to judge afterwards, not in advance. Thank God somebody else said it. Right? Because you could talk to everybody about the out-of-body experience all day long, and they think they know everything, or they think they know the truth of it, or they're projecting their truths and realities onto you, and they've never even tried it, or they've tried it a little bit and it just didn't work. They didn't really desire to see, the truth of it if they barely tried it and walked away from it. Trust me. Trust me on that one. They're more comfortable with their own truths. Sudi says Monroe are charging thousands though. Yeah. They have to, yeah. And they also do like a donor thing too. So they have a set of goals that they have to reach every month. I don't know how much it costs to keep that institute open and pay all the people to do what they do. But yeah, it does cost money. I still think it would be worth it. What's up, Grant Gets Out? Hey, let me ask you a question, Grant. Can we make a t-shirt? I'll even give you the money if we can make a t-shirt that says Grant Gets Out and put like a picture of you getting out of body on it, because that's that's the perfect handle. I like it, brother. Grant Gets Out t-shirts. So I say experience it. I follow the formula and judge the merits of my statements afterwards. That is the time to judge, right? Don't criticize the cuisine until it's served. It's the best way to say that. I have been accused of being superstitious because of my beliefs in phantoms of the living phantoms and phantoms of the dead. And usually I find that my accusers are themselves superstitious on other subjects. Recently, a churchgoer told me that he did not understand how I or any other person could believe that he had a ghost inside him. See, this guy Verdun even calls it a ghost, just like me. I could be the reincarnated version of this dude, maybe. I'm thinking, because he thinks like me. Yet this same critic professed to believe the Bible from cover to cover, even that Christ gave up the ghost at death. That's kind of hypocritical, wouldn't you say? On the other hand, the materialists believe that it is a superstition if anyone believes that the mind can exist apart from the brain. The materialist theory is that the brain oozes thoughts just as the liver oozes bile, and that the materialist, who cannot prove the brain oozes thoughts, forgets that he cannot prove his argument and demands proof of the spiritualist. So if you press the materialist for proof, he will tell you that by experiment, remember, it becomes evident that the brain produces thought. And that is about the very thing the spiritualist will tell you. Vis-a-vis by experiment, it is evident that the brain does not produce thought. Both materialist and spiritualist must throw away reason, and you have to resort to experiment. In other words, void walking. That's what void walking is. I don't know the truth until I'm willing to experience it. Otherwise, all I'm doing is this. And this, right, affects everybody else too. The person, the fringe person, the void walker, the person that's willing to go into the void of the unknown and experiment and experience the truth of something, and at the very least have the burning desire to find the truth, will get the truth. And that's gnosis, right? That's how you get there. You're not going to get there by just blabbing, thinking you know everything about it. As I can tell you, all the void walking that I've done, I still don't know the truth about a lot of this. Some of it I do, but a lot of it I don't. It's so vast, how can anybody claim to know the truth of all this stuff? And he goes on to say, and this is all I ask the reader to do, to convince himself of the merits of what I have written. Throw away reason and try experiment. It is my hope that all who are successful, even those who produce minor results by following the methods contained herein, will make those results known to me, for I wish to collect the evidence. I take this opportunity to express thanks to Mr. Carrington for his valuable cooperation and assistance, and to my fiancée, Miss Goodrich, for her help in typing the manuscript. And this Carrington guy goes on to talk about why he's fascinated that this guy wrote the book and in the introduction and things of that nature. So tonight I wanted to talk about and use this book and read through it with you and discuss it about the astral cord. I know some of you, especially that comment after the show and that hit me up in the messengers on Discord and things like that, some of you have already gotten out of body and you've gotten into your etheric body. So what I'm asking you guys is about the astral cord. As many times as I've been out of body, I have not seen this thing, witnessed it, felt it. I'm not sure that it's even a real thing, but this guy Muldoon says that it is. And the way that he talks about it, you know, I could understand why I wouldn't see it, and I'll explain that in a minute. But what a lot of people are afraid of when they get out of body is things like insanity, shock, heart failure even. I've heard some people freak out about that. They say, oh man, it felt like my heart stopped. Dying and being buried prematurely. Like, people are afraid of that. Obsession, the severance of the astral cord, right? Repercussion effects upon your physical body, things of that nature. He goes into all of this in this book. So I kind of do want to know if you guys can let me know in the chat or however you want to reach out, what's keeping you from experimenting with this? Maybe we can actually do this in the YouTube. Maybe I could type it in as a question. What keeps you from actually really wanting to experience the out-of-body state? What's your biggest fear? And all fears are valid, man. Look, Grant gets out. He's experimenting with it, right? He said, I just came out of Focus 12 session and I ain't got out yet. I'm still working on it. There you go. So let's see if I can do this. Put this question up. Start a Q&A. I'll just put, what scares you about the OBE experience? There. And it doesn't make you weak. All fear is valid. It comes from a place of self-protection. It doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen, but that's the nature of fear itself. It is a blocker. It does block you from progress in a lot of ways, but don't be ashamed of it. It's also a natural thing. All right. So what this guy states is that the astral cord, actually comes through the body, through the third eye. It's so trippy when I saw the pictures of it in this book, and I'll see if I can show them to you too in tonight's broadcast if we get to that point. And I've heard people say it's attached to the solar plexus, but here's the thing. In the physical body, it comes out of, he shows a picture of it coming out of the third eye. And into the astral body, it attaches to the cerebral cortex, to the back of the head, right? Now, it's just like this etheric cord. Now, if that's true, that might be a reason why I never saw it, right? I never saw this thing. And if you think about it, how often do you reach around to the back of your head? You don't. That might be why I didn't see it. How often do you... It's like the Plato's cave thing, consciousness is this 180 view, So that would make sense that if I had an astral cord, it projected through the third eye of my brain, attached to the cerebral cortex, so to speak, of my etheric form, I would have never seen it. But I stopped reading last night because I was like, oh, I got to share this with the show, So here he goes into this, right? He says, the existence of the astral body has long been known. There is a natural physical body, and there is a spiritual body. So states St. Paul in his first epistle to the Corinthians. And if you read those books, it doesn't make sense if Christians don't believe in this, because he even says it, whether in the body or out of the body, I'm not sure. I think he says it like 3 times, whether I was in the body or out of the body. And all the other visions that a lot of the religious books have are all out-of-body experiences, in my opinion. Muhammad's trek, through the 7 levels of whatever, all of this stuff. Psychic research, too, has long ago established the belief that within every material being is a non-material double, or what some texts call the twin. A cryptic entity coinciding with minute exactitude with your own body, with the physical mechanism in every center and cell of your body. Records are numerous, confirming from many trustworthy scientists, which substantiate the claim that this non-material being, or the astral body, as it is commonly termed by them, is capable of separating from its physical counterpart and of existing entirely outside its material abode, intangible to the beings surrounded it. So when you separate, and a lot of you have done this, as you fall asleep, if you catch yourself slipping into a dream in hypnagogia, you'll feel that floating. You ever felt that rising? Sometimes when you're really tired, and I do this all the time, you just go straight to sleep. You don't remember any of that. But sometimes you're a little bit conscious as you're going into this deep sleep, and you'll feel this rising or floating feeling or this levitating feeling, right? That levitation that you're feeling as you fall asleep, according to this guy and many OBE researchers, is your etheric double rising. And eventually it's going to stop somewhere and just hover there. But the thing is you can walk around in this body, you know. I was under the impression that the cord would be attached to our belly button like the umbilical cord in the astral realm. That's what I heard too. And when I never saw it. I never saw it like in my solar plexus or anything like that ever. In my stomach, it just wasn't there. But I think he gets into this, right? The enigmatic occurrence will be spoken of as astral projection or astral exteriorization. I think Dr. Stylianos Ateshlis calls it exematosis, right? He got so good at it that he could move physical objects in the physical world in his etheric body. He even freaked out one of his friends by moving a knife on the desk. Or he would take his grandson to the ocean in his astral body, and they would go into the ocean and talk to like fishes and stuff. In fact, the first step into that the mysterious realm called death, which sooner or later all of us must enter, the same thing happens. You have an etheric double. So, if you're interested in this dark phenomena, if you have stood over the casket and gazed upon the cold corpse and in silent wondered how the being who only shortly before was animate, possessed of intelligence, moving, thinking, talking, even as we are now, could be a lifeless nothing, the same as you shudder to think you will become, then you are interested in astral projection, for astral projection and death are not unlike each other. To the vast multitudes who have never met with this phenomenon, and even to those who have in some manner acquainted themselves with it, must necessarily be placed in the category of theories. But to the conscious projector, this exteriorization of the non-material counterpart of the physical is a great reality, as self-evident as the fact that he is consciously alive. So think about this. You have this intelligence in your body. I tell my finger to move, it moves just as fast as my thoughts. I have this thing that controls all of these centers in my body. We think it's just connected to the brain. But if that were true, they've done experiments with human bodies right after they're dead, hooked them up to signals and electricity. What do? They just flop. That's all they do. They just flop around. Without this energy that we don't understand, this etheric energy that's in the universe that we don't understand, what the Bible calls the breath of life, like we're just lifeless beings. We're just another form of meat, you know. And here's the thing, just like this, like in the chat, you guys are talking about the cord, the astral cord, right? Well, if we don't know for a fact, how do we figure that out? We have to go experiment. And like if we really want to know the facts, we have to void walk and go figure it out. You don't have to, but that's the way to do it, though, right? Let's see. So this guy says, you need to understand that I have indulged in hundreds of projections during a period of 12 years, projections both of pleasant and a disagreeable nature, while completely conscious and partially conscious. The greater part of the material contained in this work is from my own experience. After so many years as an astral projector, and at the same time while conducting many experiments with the phase, I have gleaned countless facts and made numerous reasonable deductions from those facts, some of which, so far as I can ascertain, have never before been discovered or made known by other writers in the occult field. And realizing that the world is filled with skeptics who stand pat in their tracks, proclaiming themselves, quote, practical, who are not open to new possibilities, the prove-it folks, who cannot see the road leading to the real, is befogged with mystery and merges into the horizon of mystery at both ends, I wish to state this. If you are one of this type, looking for proofs that can be measured and weighed through the medium of your limited mind and five senses, you will not find them here. The materialist, of course, will reject the very idea of astral projection as nonsense. Reason is his god and his idol. the light that guides his convictions. He revels under what he terms the divine torch of reason. There's only one trouble with this divine torch. It doesn't shed much light on the mysteries of life at all. Life itself is beyond comprehension by the mind of man, and to say nothing of its appealing to reason. Just which of the materialist five senses it is that gives him an understanding of life, of creation, of thought, and mental processes he does not make known, yet he must accept them. Indeed, everything is accepted without extensive reasoning. We may examine everything, examine anything, analyze everything intellectually till doomsday, yet there will always loom up the inexplicable. On the other hand, he goes on to say this: there is no point in the occult teachings better established, longer held, or more thoroughly proven, says Walker Atkinson, than that of the existence of the astral body. This is so true, you guys. Like, if you're a skeptic of the mysteries as a whole, whether it's like esoteric, whether it's magic, whether it's the Eastern mysteries, just spirituality as a whole, the proof is in the astral body. Every single person on the face of this earth can do this via enough work and experimentation, can experience this. And when you experience this, you will have solid objective proof for only yourself. But that should be good enough, right? That this is real, that it's real. You don't even have to be religious. Hell, you don't even have to be spiritual. But if you're curious to know that if it's real, you should take this step. Take it with us, right? This teaching of the ancient occultists is being corroborated by the experiments and investigations of the psychic researchers of the present day. Man, I had no idea they were looking at this stuff in the 20s like they are. Like, this is cool. The astral body belonging to every person is an exact counterpart of the perfect physical body of that person. It is composed of fine ethereal matter and is usually encased in the physical body. In ordinary cases, the detachment of the astral body from its physical counterpart is accomplished only with great difficulty, but in the case of dreams, great mental stress, and under certain conditions of occult development, the astral body may become detached and sent on long journeys, traveling at a rate of speed only less than that of light waves. On these journeys, it is always connected with the physical body by a long, here we go with the cord, right? By a long, filmy connected link. If this link were to become broken, the person would die instantly. But this is an almost unheard of occurrence in the ordinary planes of action. The astral body actually exists a long time after the death of the physical body, but it disintegrates in time. It sometimes hovers around the resting place of the physical corpse and is mistaken for the spirit of the deceased person, although really it is merely a shell or finer outer coating of the soul. Think about that. That's a trippy thought. What if he's right? So when we die, we go into our ethereal form, and we can hang out in the astral for a while, maybe as long as we want, but eventually we're going to disintegrate. Eventually. I don't know about that. I mean, how could he know that truth? He can't know that because he wasn't dead when he wrote this. Maybe we'll find out. The astral body of a dying person is often projected to the presence of friends and loved ones a few moments before the physical death. The phenomenon arising from the strong desire of the dying person to see and be seen. The astral body frequently travels from its physical counterpart and psychomantic phenomena and visits scenes far distant, there sensing what is occurring. It also leaves the body during what are known as psychomantic dreams, or under the influence of anesthetics, or in some of the deeper phases of hypnosis, when it visits strange scenes and places and often holds mental conversation with other astral bodies or else with disembodied entities. The jumbled and distorted recollection of these dreams are occasioned by the brain not having received perfect impressions transmitted to it, by reason of lack of training, development, the result being like a blurred or distorted photographic plate. So now you guys know, I want you to understand this. One of the deepest, if not the deepest part of the mysteries, especially in the West, and you should have picked up on this if you've read enough Manly P. Hall, is that the astral body is real. The real work of the initiate happens in the astral realm, where you meet your, quote, masters and things of that nature, your higher self, things like that, all happen in the astral realm. And everything that we do on this earth, all the rituals, ceremonies, everything, everything is just an exoteric representation of what really goes on in this realm from then and then on. In fact, it helps generate that energy if you think about it. So from the scientist's point of view, the OBE experience is nothing but just toying around with the astral, and that's it. From the esoteric and Western mystery point of view, the astral part is the realm of alchemy and the sun, right? You got the moon, the sun, and the stars. That's where the adept does their work in the astral realm. That's where the Golden Dawn initiates made this vault of adepti with the 7 sides that correspond to the planets, and they put all the symbols on the walls. And instead of doing their magic rituals in a big temple, when they became an adept, when they got into the solar work, they would just go into this vault, focus and scry upon a symbol, and move into the astral world and project into it, right? So we really shouldn't glorify all these ceremonies and rituals to this thing that we think that they are. It's just simply us trying to remember. I said this on Chance's podcast. We're trying to remember these truths. And by celebrating them, we, quote, remember. Think about that word, you know. The really mystery school is in the astral. Boom. Yeah, that's where it is. We're training ourselves for that. Grant gets out, my man. We call ourselves physically alive, but in reality, the material part of us is as dead as a doornail. It is the energy behind the physical mechanism that is the real life or live thing. Nerves themselves are not alive. If they were, we would have buried many a living body. It is the neuric energy which animates the astral body, is the condenser of the nervous energy you are using right at this very moment. Why? Well, you say, then the astral body is in existence now, and it is. Many have been the authorities upon the subject of astral projection, and many are under the impression that the astral body is formed by a mental process, which is not the case. If it were the case, where would the victim who is bumped off instantly get his astral body? If such were the case, no one would be possessed of an astral body after death except the fellow who was lucky enough to have heard of the creative mental process. Yes, you are using your astral body even now. It is just tuned down. We might say to harmonize with the vibrations common to your material substance or your body. Now, there are factors which hold it down, and there are factors which tune it up. The powers which can be exerted to disharmonize the attunement are the powers which will cause the astral to move out of the physical. The astral body coincides with the physical throughout, both bodies being substance. And it is obvious that both will be identical in shape, and the phantom, this is where he starts to call it the phantom, or what I call the etheric or the astral ghost. The phantom is, in appearance, an exact duplicate of the physical body. Surviving what is termed death, the astral body is often seen by others present at death. The true likeness of the physical body, and after death, the phantom continues to hold this true form, but sooner or later changes to a much more finely composed spirit. The range of vibration to which our earthly existence is limited does not extend over all creation, and consequently we are unaware of the vast realities all around us. When the astral phantom, whose eyes you are using even now as I'm reading this, become tuned up, which it can be, those eyes will be able to see other things besides the familiar surroundings. And this is what the Theosophists and some magicians were trying to work on. Think about it. Blavatsky, all of those people, if they can tune their vibration up to a certain level, they can see astral forms, not be because they've inherited something better in their eyeballs, but they've tuned their astral body up to a higher degree to where even when they're in their body and alive, they can see some astral figures and things like that. And sometimes we do. When we're children, we see things like that, and sometimes we create them, through our fears and things too. So those eyes will be able to see other things besides the familiar surroundings, and the astral body will be able to get out of the physical when it's tuned up. The fact that the eyes, after projection, are capable of seeing earthly and other astral beings, too, shows that the range of vibration has increased. This may appear paradoxical to one who is accustomed to the idea that the conscious mind is a part of the physical mechanism. In fact, the material body has no mind at all, but clings over the astral, to speak symbolically, which is the real ego, through which the conscious mind really functions. It is erroneous to believe that the astral being has a super mentality. It has not. The conscious mind, as you know it, is the mind of the astral body. Your normal conscious mind, everything it contains, is the you, the individual, now and throughout eternity, learning as it goes, remembering. There is, however, what's called the subconscious, the vast, unfathomable superintelligence, which is well nigh omnipotent and inherent in all, yet we do not conceive this as the individual as we do the conscious. Most believers in the spirit are somehow under the impression that to awaken in the astral realm is to be enlightened by all the powers of the subconscious, which is not the case. The subconscious sustains practically the same relation to the exteriorized phantom as it does the interiorized, physically alive being. Did y'all get that? So he's saying that a lot of stuff the spiritualists teach about what the subconscious is and how we tap into it, learn to work with it more, and that's how we get out of body, or that's how we astral project, is not really a thing. That's what he's saying. But we don't have to take his truth. Like he said, we have to experience it. I'm with him on that. So he goes on to say, suppose, for example, that your physical body were to drop off or die this very instant. You would be in the astral, still unchanged, not as a superintelligent being, but retaining your identical mentality as before, no more, no less. And this is one great point to remember. The physical is but non-intelligent material, and is like a cloak to the astral phantom. It is logical to suppose that at birth the astral body, or the ego, was brought into being by the omnipotent intelligence which is, was, and always will be. While the conscious mind of this body was in the form of a blank, you're just a blank, ready to receive impressions, learn, and grow. It matters not at what stage of life we may die. Our total consciousness at the end of earthly existence is the total we possess after physical expiration. So that's one theory, right? How many of you agree with him on this? Did anybody answer that question? Let's see, I'm going to end this question. Yeah. And yeah, condolences, Domek. I mean, Michael's father just passed away. And yeah, we've been talking to. It's pretty crazy, a lot of the synchronicities that happened during those times. Yeah, see, I've read other books too that say that the astral cord goes through the solar plexus. But in the second part of the book or the show, I'll see if I can pull up those pictures for you guys on YouTube so you can see where he's saying that the cord comes out of. All right, let me see if I can get to a stopping point before we got to do the radio station break here. Much love to the Domex and Michael. Oh, shit. Don't you hate when you do that, when you click on something, you open a program you didn't mean to open? Okay. So let me do this one real quick. My first conscious astral projection. This is not what you think it's going to be. I think it was by accident, but holding the fact firmly in mind that the astral member is the real live self. The real live self that you are is not your body. It's your astral self. And that the physical is but a sort of shell. We will now turn our attention to what actually occurs when astral projection takes place. I shall describe the very first conscious projection I ever experienced. Realize, however, that all experiences are not alike, and if, by following the laws of the art, which will be summed up later, you succeed in projecting, what you meet with may not tally in all respects with what I have given, and that proficiency is acquired by practice. At the time, I was the youth of 12. Why don't you just say I was 12 years old? Thinking little of life's more serious problems and caring less. Although others in the family had studied along occult lines to some extent, I knew practically nothing concerning the higher life. To be sure, I had heard that we live after death, much as we do now, but that was the sum total of my knowledge on the subject, and even that was not a matter of thought with me. Through reading some books on spiritism, my mother, mostly urged by curiosity and a desire to determine whether it was fact or fiction, decided to visit the camp of the Mississippi Valley Spiritualist Association in Clinton, Iowa. I accompanied her, as did my very small brother, and the occurrence which I shall now relate took place there. We retired at an early hour that evening. Incidentally, rooming in a house were lodged half a dozen widely known mediums. That's a weird upbringing, right? It's unusual. I dozed off to sleep about 10:30 in the same natural manner as I've always done before, and slept for several hours. At length I realized that I was slowly awakening, yet I could not seem to drift back into slumber nor further arouse. In this bewildering stupor I knew, within me, that I existed somewhere, somehow, in a powerless, silent, dark, and feelingless condition. But still I was conscious. A very unpleasant contemplation of being. I repeat again, I was aware that I existed, but where I could not seem to understand. My memory would not tell me. This stupefaction which one experiences when first arousing from the influence of an anesthetic is similar. I thought that I was awakening from sleep in a natural way, yet I could not proceed. There was but one thought dominating my mind. Where was I? Where am I? Gradually, it seemed an eon of time, but in reality it was but a short interval. I became more conscious of the fact that I was lying somewhere. These few half-clear thoughts brought relative thoughts, and shortly I seemed to know that I was reclining upon a bed, but still bewildered as to my exact location. That's happened to me. Does that ever happen to you guys? Like when you wake up, not after a drunk, by the way, but have you ever just woke up, well, maybe after a drunk, you know, you ever just woke up and like, damn, where am I? For that, there's like a moment there where you're trying to gather your thoughts. Where am I? Who am I? All of that shit, right? I tried to move to determine my whereabouts, only to find that I was powerless, as if I adhered to that on which I rested. Adhered, that is the exact sensation. If conscious at the beginning of exteriorization, one feels fairly glued down, stuck fast in an immovable position. So he was paralyzed. The condition I have called astral catalepsy, since there is no word yet coined to define it. Well, not in the 1920s. We call it sleep paralysis now. Astral catalepsy will be discussed later on in more detail. But suffice it to say here that the astral catalepsy can be present either with or without the functioning of the senses, and with or without consciousness. For astral catalepsy is direct subconscious control. Eventually the feeling of adhesion relaxed, but was replaced by another sensation equally unpleasant, that of floating. So he started feeling like he was floating, like I was telling you guys before. Occurring at the same time, my entire rigid body. I thought it was my physical, but it was my astral, commenced vibrating at a great rate of speed and in an up and down direction, and I could feel a tremendous pressure being exerted in the back of my head, in the medulla oblongata region. The medulla oblongata. This pressure was very impressive and came in regular spurts, and the force of which seemed to pulsate my whole body. All this was to me like some queer nightmare in total darkness, for of course I knew not what was taking place. Amid this pandemonium of bizarre sensations, floating, vibratory, zigzagging, and head-pulling, I began to hear somewhat familiar and seemingly far distant sounds. The sense of hearing was beginning to function. I tried to move, but still could not, as if I were in the grip of some cryptic and super-powerful directing force. No sooner had the sense of hearing come into being than that of sight followed. When able to see, I was more than astonished. No words could possibly explain my wonderment. I was floating. I was floating in the very air, rigidly horizontal, a few feet above the bed. The room, my exact location, was now comprehended. Things seemed hazy at first, but were becoming clear. I knew well where I was, yet could not account for my strange behavior. Slowly, still zigzagging, with the strong pressure in the back of my head, I was moving towards the ceiling, all the while horizontal and powerless. I believed naturally that this was my physical body, as I had always known it, but that it had mysteriously begun to defy gravity. All right, we'll stop right there. So, this guy is explaining the exact thing that I'm telling you guys about. You're never going to, like, if you've actually had an etheric out-of-body projection, okay, you're never going to question it, because it is just as real. It depends, like if you have to haze through it. But when you're finally conscious in your etheric body, it is just as real as the consciousness that you have right now. Like right now. You don't forget anything like you do in a dream. You still have all of your senses for the most part. That's why when he says your life force is actually your astral body, that's why when you have an etheric projection, it seems real, just like this reality. It's not until you start delving off into other realms that things get a little hazy, you know. Grant Gets Out says, I think NPCs just have a bad connection, but they do have one, like a drip instead of a flow. Could be. All right. So we got to do the Fringe FM thing for the radio station, you guys. Yeah, do we? Yeah, we do. Well, they're going to stop it. They won't let us play music anymore. I got to have my music, man. And we'll be right back. Just a short break. I'm going to run and grab a drink, and then we'll finish his first astral story. But if you can get this book, I highly recommend it. Because I know this is one guy that's had out-of-body experiences. It's called The Projection of the Astral Body by Verdum. Last name Vurdoom. I put it in the Discord too. You guys make sure you guys get in that Discord, damn it. All right. God be you. Yeah, break time. Be right back. Stay with us.
longtime fan of the Fridge FM, challenging everyone to open their mind's eye. Listen to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop to gain precision for your third eye vision.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of the Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
Hey, this is country music singer and void walker Jason Benoit, and when I need my fix on the world of magic and the capabilities of the human consciousness, I listen to Joe Roop right here on Lighting the Void Radio.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Olivia from Washington. Laid off and trying to keep our little kids from realizing that mommy and daddy haven't eaten in a while.
Roger from California. I'm grateful we could afford our son's surgery. I'm nervous that now we can't really afford food.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Keisha from South Carolina. I've been skipping meals so my 2 kids can eat, but filling up on water doesn't really work.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady and the Ad Council.
Have you ever wondered, what do the stars say for me? Or, will the next month or the next year be more favorable? How about, are our 2 signs compatible? Each month, at the new moon, you can ask these questions live. With me, your astrologer psychic, Mary DeCina, along with host of Lighting the Void, Joe Root. Join us at the new moon for Cosmic Conditions. We look forward to working with your energy.
Every new moon at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fringe FM. To Lighting the Void. Thanks for your lovely patience with the radio station. We're going to get back into this book written in the 1920s and fascinating text. I want to say this is let me give you the name of it. You got to get it. I think it's just as good as, Journeys Out of the Body, probably just as good. All right, page 54. Projection of the Astral Body by Sylvan J Muldoon. I wonder if Robert Monroe read this book. I bet he did. You can visit the radio station website at fringe.fm. You can also visit our website at ltvpodcast.shop. There you can get access to members members only gear, the Discord, some of the cool stuff we do in the Discord, access to all of the voice guided path workings that I do, as well as the podcast called The Void Walkers, where we get a little deeper into it. It's a little bit more vulnerable podcast. And you could also, if you like Patreon, use Patreon. You guys get all the same stuff in there too. All right. And thank you guys yesterday. Whoever tipped on Stream Elements on the YouTube channel, we got those tips instantly, man. And they didn't take 30% out like YouTube does. So thank you guys. All you guys, even if you don't support, just for being here. Thank you. Okay. Couldn't do it without you. God bless you. Now, here's the thing. So this guy's in the throes of this astral projection for the first time. And I know it seems kind of mundane, but he's discussing his first projection of hundreds of projections, right? And he describes himself as floating like right above his body. And he actually, like, for artwork in the 20s, it's not bad. Let me show it to you. Here it is. Actually doesn't have a little bad artwork. Here it is right here. So he thought that it was his physical body, but it wasn't, right? And he goes on to say, I believe naturally that this was my physical body as I always known it, but that it had mysteriously begun to defy gravity, and it was too unnatural for me to understand. Yet, he's still floating there, isn't he? It was too unnatural for me to understand, yet too real to deny. Just for being conscious, being able to see, I could not question my sanity. Involuntarily, at about 6 feet above the bed, as if the movement had been conducted by an invisible force present in the very air, I was uprighted from the horizontal position to the perpendicular and placed standing upon the floor of the room. There I stood for what seemed to be about 2 minutes, still powerless to move of my own accord and staring straight ahead. I was still astrally cataleptic. So he still, even though he was stood up and everything, he still felt paralyzed astrally. Then the controlling force relaxed. I felt free, noticing only the tension in the back of my head. I took a step, and when the pressure increased for an interval and threw my body out at an acute angle, I managed to turn around, and there were two of me. There was two of them. I was beginning to believe myself insane. There was another me lying quietly upon the bed. It was difficult to convince myself that this was real, but consciousness would not allow me to doubt what I saw. My two identical bodies were joined by means of an elastic-like cable, one of which was fastened to the medulla oblongata region of the astral counterpart, while the other the other end centered between the eyes of the physical counterpart. This cable extended across the space of probably 6 feet which separated us, and all this time I was having difficulty in keeping my balance, swaying first to one side and then to the other. Ignorant of the true significance of my condition, my first thought on seeing this spectacle was that I had died during sleep. I did not know at the time that death comes only when the severing of the cable happens. I made my way, struggling under the magnetic pull of the cord, to where the consanguineous earthly beings lay asleep in another room, hoping to awaken them and let them know of this awful plight. So he was about to go into his parents' room, right? I imagine at 12 years old you would. I think I'm dead. I attempted to open the door, but found myself passing through it. Another miracle to my already astonished mind. Going from one room to another, I tried fervently to arouse the sleeping occupants of the house. I clutched at them, called to them, tried to shake them, but my hands passed through them as though they were but vapors. I started to cry. I wanted them to see me, but they could not even feel my presence. All of my senses seemed normal, save that of touch. I could not make touchable contact with things as formerly. An automobile passed by the house. I could see it and hear it plainly, and after a while the clock struck 2, and looking I saw it registered that hour. I think I did this when I was a kid too, man. but I thought I was dreaming. I never saw another double, though. I began to prowl about the place, filled with the anxiety that morning would come, and then those sleepers would awaken and see me. As I recall it, I prowled about in different rooms for perhaps 15 minutes, and when I noticed a pronounced increase in the resistance of the cable, it was pulling with a stronger and stronger tug. See, this is how I know that, like, this is true. Like, the closer you are to your body, there's a pull. Like, it's like this magnetic pull. It's trying to pull you back towards it. It's almost like feeling like to me, it feels like someone's pulling back on you the whole time that you're trying to walk, you know. I began to zigzag again under this force and found presently that I was being pulled backwards towards my body. Again, I found myself powerless to move. Again, I was in the grip of a tremendous, unseen directing power. I was cataleptic and was resuming the horizontal position directly over the bed. It was the reverse procedure of which I had experienced while rising from the bed. Slowly, the phantom lowered, vibrating again as it did so, and then it dropped suddenly, coinciding with the physical counterpart once more. So he vibrated, came out of his body, floated in his etheric body above the bed, stood on the ground, so to speak, right? Was still kind of paralyzed, even as he was watching his body. Then eventually began to free himself, moved around the house a little bit, and then this pull, which definitely happens, like this is almost exactly how it happened to me, pulls you back towards the body. And then he said as he came back into the body and merged with it, he felt those vibrations again, you know. At this moment of coincidence, every muscle in the physical jerked, and a penetrating pain, as if I had been split open from head to foot, shot through me. I was physically alive again, filled with awe, as amazed, as fearful, and I had been conscious throughout the entire occurrence. Since the adventure I have just related took place, I have experienced hundreds of other projections with countless deviations from the given sensations, but with the corporal movement always clinging to the same route as that which I have described. Although repetition naturally brings about greater perfection, this is probably one of the most unusual first projections on record, so far as consciousness is concerned, eclipsing in its clarity many of the best efforts of adept mediums. While it is my personal opinion that I naturally possess a hidden power to project the inner being from my body, I also credit the extraordinariness of the first conscious exteriorization to the fact that several remarkable mediums slept in rooms adjacent to one which I had occupied. That's got to be a trippy thing, man. Can you imagine being a 12-year-old kid in the 1920s? Like, you could be, I think that was before War of the Worlds came out, right? The Roaring 20s. Such a cool time. Radios, cars, and telephones. How cool. Zoot suits, things like that. And you're a kid. You don't go to church. Your mother takes you to a spiritual retreat with a bunch of mediums. You think that kid got made fun of in school? I bet he was probably told not to talk about it. I still think it's pretty rad, though. It is a fact, as most students of the occult understand, that a line of force can be established between persons for the benefit of another person. I shall touch upon this point later, inasmuch as it concerns this phenomenon. I have purposely omitted many details in drawing a picture of this first projection, which will be fully covered as we go deeply into the study. A long story in itself could be told of astral plane life, earthly relativity, associations of phantoms, etc., yet no disclosure capable of being consigned to pen and ink could ever do justice to it all. So I shall refrain from delving into this department now, and my purpose being to give a more analytic presentation of the phenomena of astral exteriorization and how it's produced. So now let us go on from what has gone before. So now that we have a fair mental picture of the astral body projection, wherein consciousness participated from the very commencement to the very finish of the process. It is, however, not always in that, doesn't happen every time, is what he's saying. this being the exceptional and not the commonly met with occurrence. Consciousness, in fact, may interpose at any time or at any place or in any position during the process. It may be interspersed with unconsciousness, or it may never enter into the act at all. As a rule, when consciousness does intervene, it makes its debut after the body has already separated and is walking about, totally unaware of the fact up to the time of awakening. And incidentally, this being the most common time and place for the intervention of consciousness, it is also the most desirable. For thus the preliminary and disagreeable stages spoken of in the foregoing account are eliminated from the subject's consciousness. The elementary stages, or the subconsciously controlled catalepsy, he's talking about sleep paralysis, the zigzagging and the floating, he says, are not very pleasant to experience consciously, although one soon becomes hardened to them. So in other words, you get used to it. Nevertheless, these preliminary activities always take place, providing, of course, that the exteriorization occurs with the physical entrance in a lying or horizontal position when the subject is unconscious. And then he's got, he kind of describes sleep paralysis, and he says there are 3 types of sleep paralysis. Types of projections, I'm sorry. There are 3 kinds of projection which may be classified as conscious, partially conscious, and unconscious. Under the latter classification, unconscious, there are 2 distinct forms of phenomenon. First, the emotive. Second, somnambulistic. Emotive unconscious astral projection is simply unconscious astral paralysis in the perpendicular or standing position. It is a frequent happening for the projector to stand in this matter, as I have shown in the preceding paragraphs. Just as under the unconscious classification, there are 2 kinds of phenomena, emotive and motive, somnambulistic. There are likewise emotive and motive types of conscious projection. The only difference between the unconscious motive and emotive types and the conscious motive and emotive types is that in the latter, the subject is awake. That's confusing as shit. Obviously, the emotive type always precedes and may develop into the motive. Then he has the second one called astral somnambulism. This is sleepwalking. So your astral body's running the show, but your body's actually asleep, but you're still moving around in your body. So you're sleepwalking, basically. Commonly called sleepwalking of the physical being, there are also persons who, while asleep, walk about in the astral body. This I have termed astral somnambulism. It is a state of the unconscious projection more advanced than the unconscious emotive state. It is a state where the phantom is liberated from catalepsy, from paralysis, but remains unconscious and is far more common than is generally supposed. During sleep, many mediums travel in the astral body but never become conscious, and while doing so, consequently, they never realize the fact. I stated formerly, when the consciousness does not intervene, it comes in most cases, while the subject is either standing cataleptic or is astrally somnambulating. It has been my most common experience to gain consciousness and find myself astrally somnambulating. In astral somnambulism, just as in physical somnambulism, the subconscious mind controls the meandering body. God, dude, I remember when I was a kid, I was sleeping at my grandma's house, and my grandmother's house had 3 levels. The basement level, which there was a living room, a kitchen, and a TV room. And then the mid-level, which was where the kids slept, me and my cousins or whatever, and then down the hall was my grandmother. And then a higher level, just above that, where great-grandma Cotton slept, you know. My Uncle David was living there at the time, and I remember him sleepwalking. And I remember the first time I saw this guy sleepwalk, it was so freaky. And my cousin Jeremiah, he told me, he said, look, do not mess with my dad when he's sleepwalking. And I'm like, why? And he goes, it's crazy. So he'd get drunk, right? And he'd sleepwalk. And I thought it was funny at first. And I heard him one night, just just like doing this, making these weird sounds while he's walking around. I think I was like 8 or 9 or something. And I'm thinking, oh, hell, he's sleepwalking. I got to go out there and look at him. I got to go see what this is about. So I ran out of the room, and my cousin jumped up out of his bed, and he's like, no, don't mess with him. Don't mess with him. And he had made it all the way down the steps. And when this guy in this book talks about unconscious somnambulism that's moving the physical body, it's like you're unconscious, but you're in paralysis, so to speak, but you're still moving around. Anyways, we had a blanket at the bottom of the steps, and that was to prevent the heat from getting out of downstairs fireplace to the upstairs. And so he goes in, messes around the refrigerator. We hear him walking back up the steps, and he starts yelling, Jeremiah, Jeremiah. And he runs down there to help him. And I said, wait, I told you, you said not to mess with him. He's like, I don't know what to do. Help me. So his dad, my uncle, got trapped in this blanket as he was coming up the steps. And he's pushing on it while he's sleepwalking. And he's like, just don't touch him because he'll freak out, right? And so we're trying to move the blanket before he goes up the steps. And then he kind of like unconsciously reaches out and grabs Jeremiah. And I was like, oh, shit. And he looks, his eyes are shut, but he kind of looks down at him. And this is what he says. I remember it was the weirdest thing. He said what did he say? There's 10 men standing in a field and they're all staring at you. What do you do? And Jeremiah looked at me. He's like, I don't know what to say. And he tried to pull away from him. And he goes, I don't know. You just stand there. And you could tell that he was unconscious because he would have never done this awake. And his dad he goes, wrong, and jacks him in the head and knocks the hell out of him, knocks him on the ground. And I thought, oh my God, this dude's going to go through the house and just start hitting people. And you could tell that it wasn't like Uncle David. Like it was something else was like, I don't know, man. It was something else maybe it was his unconscious or something. I don't know. But ever since then, I've been afraid of everybody that I've ever saw sleepwalking because you don't know what they're going to do. Eventually, it took about 2 hours, but he just kept going through the house and finally laid down, Maybe it had something to do with the alcohol. I don't know. But I never knew that was actually your astral body that's unconscious moving around your paralyzed body. That's what this guy's saying. So you're unconscious on 2 levels, but the unconscious has taken over both bodies, the astral body and the physical body, which can be a very weird and dangerous thing, I think. Anyways, he goes on to talk about that. And then he talks about this thing called distant point projection. Another distant form of the phenomenon being discussed is distant point projection. The astral body separates from its physical counterpart and travels to some faraway place during the state of unconsciousness, although sometimes being conscious for an interval at that place. Usually the medium, while awake, instructs his subconscious to send him to the remote place where he wishes to go, so that he may witness the scenes and events which are happening there. Trance intervenes. On awakening again, he is aware of having been at the desired place, but scarcely ever has any recollection of having made the trip. In such a case, the actual distance covered is not recalled, because the flight is seemingly made with the speed of light, and is always unconscious. Obviously, the actual distance and the creation which it contains are not consciously recorded in the projector's consciousness. There are records of distant point projectors who have been in the astral body far removed from the physical by others, mediumistically inclined. No less an authority than William T. Stead has told of a lady of his personal acquaintance who is especially gifted with the ability to project afar and then materialize. I don't know about that. That's pretty trippy. I don't know if that's a real thing. She became a source of great worry and distress to her friends, for she would pay them unexpected visits, materialize, and frighten the hell out of them. Naturally, they supposed that she must have died and this was her ghost. The occurrences, however, became so frequent that her friends finally became familiar with the phenomenon and viewed it with great interest and wonder. Many so-called distant point projections are probably not projections at all, as a matter of fact, but are subconscious creations of the medium's own, as the subconscious alone can vision a distant point seen, not unlike that which the conscious astral body would see, if there. Of distant point vision, one writer has said, quote, "The view of a distant scene obtained in this way is in many ways not unlike that seen through a telescope. Human figures usually appear very small, like those upon a distant stage, but in spite of their diminutive size, they are clear, as though they were close by. Sometimes it is possible by this means to hear what is said as well as to see what's being done. But as in the majority of cases this does not happen, we must consider it rather as the manifestation of an additional power than as a necessary corollary of the faculty of sight. It will be observed that in cases of this kind, the clairvoyant does not actually leave his physical body at all. He simply manufactures for himself and uses a kind of psychic telescope. Consequently, he has the use of his physical powers while he is examining the distant scene. For example, his voice usually describes what he sees, even while he is in the act of making the observation." That's not the same as remote viewing, though. All right, so the next part. This is all trippy stuff. It's like Twilight Zone stuff, right? The phantoms, the astral, he calls the phantom the etheric double. The phantom's 3 moving speeds. There are 3 different velocities at which the phantom travels. First, the natural or normal speed, which is in use when the subject is conscious and free to move about in his immediate environment, or while he is in a state of astral somnambulism, he simply walks. That's the one that I did. I walked and flew a little bit. Second, the intermediate speed, in which the subject moves along without effort, faster than normal speed, but not fast enough to cause loss of perception. When this takes place, one does not appear to be moving. All right, y'all check this out. This is how you fly. One does not appear to be moving, but everything seems to be coming towards him, through him, passing him, just as the fields and fences seem to speed backwards when one rides in a fast train. The phantom does not seem to pass through the door. The door seems to pass through the phantom. Does that make sense? All right. You want to know how I know that this is real, what he's saying? So when I had the OBE that I flew into the tree, I was doing the Buellman stuff, the Monroe stuff, and everyday LBRPs, right? I also was reading the book by Samuel Unvior at the time about lucid dreaming or dream yoga. So every day I would try to fly in the physical world. It sounds ridiculous, but I would actually try to fly, you know. So what he's saying in this book about things seem to come towards you is legit, right? So I walked outside. Don't remember if I floated through the door or not. Definitely. I was standing right out there, and I faced that tree. And when I flew into that tree over there, it wasn't like flying like Peter Pan. It's exactly as how this guy is describing. It seemed like the scene started coming towards me. Almost as if like I was on a zip line towards that tree, but I wasn't propelling myself. It was being pulled towards me as it was coming through. So when he describes it like that in this book, it makes total sense. When this takes place, one does not appear to be moving, but everything seems to be coming towards him, through him, passing him, just as the fields and fences seem to speed backward when one rides in a fast train. He does not seem to pass through the door seems to pass through the phantom. He goes on to say, streaks of light or scintillations are thrown off by the astral body and extend backward about 2 feet as it moves along this intermediate speed. These scintillations appear phosphorescent, the color of the astral body, and trail behind it in the same manner that scintillators trail behind a shooting star. This intermediate speed enables the subject to cover considerable distances rapidly without the loss of consciousness. I've done that. That's a real thing. Third is the supernormal traveling velocity, a speed beyond comprehension. It always occurs when the subject is unconscious and is in play, when the phantom is moving back and forth over great distances. It would be utterly impossible to move across a vast area at such speed and realize the distance, for the conscious mind is too slow in its thinking, and before it could formulate one single thought, the objective would already be reached. What I have just said concerning the three speeds at which the projected astral body moves is true also of permanently separated astral beings, or the dead. It has been the contention of some that every transit of the projected astral body always takes place with superspeed. This is true only when the phantom is moving toward a very distant place. So only when ghosts or our astral traveling bodies, when we're alive, are trying to go somewhere really far away, does it seem to move at those speeds. And still at other times, the free phantom behaves in a manner befitting its physically alive self, with all its own peculiarities of stride, swing, and carriage. All right. This part's pretty important, okay? This next part. I think it's important. He calls it morbidity, an incentive to projection. The supposition should not be made that astral projection occurs only during natural sleep. It may take place when the subject is practically any state of unconsciousness. In times of sickness, especially that sort of sickness which is dead or sedative, astral projection can and often does take place. It is a fact that the more weakened or languid and enervated the physical becomes, the more easily the astral member detaches itself from it. For at such times less material resistance is brought to bear against the inner workings which prompt the separation. Undoubtedly, the time of death, many people are already erect in the astral body before the final breath of the physical body is taken, although they may not be conscious of the fact. It is my firm belief that the physical debility is an incentive to most kinds of mediumship, for the less material coordination a person has, the less material will be the influences to overcome by the subconscious resources. This morbidity factor is also true of astral projection, and making this statement, I am aware that it is contrary to the ideas of many prominent authorities. I always wondered about this too. So the less focused you are on the material, and even the closer you are to death or in sickness or in weak energy, it's actually easier to astral project, according to him. Popular opinion seems to have it that the perfect material coordination or health is an essential requisite to the production of astral projection, but I hope to discredit this belief by quoting experiences and pointing out specific reasons for believing the contrary is true. If I do disagree with others as to what produces, assists, and influences projection of the astral body, I do so because of my own experience with this phase. So I can only say that if my disagreeing contemporaries are right in their claims, then I'm an exception. I shall, however, return to this morbidity question later. Exteriorization, or astral projection, may be induced by hypnotism and mesmerism. It is a significant fact that Andrew Jackson Davis, the seer of Poughkeepsie, and one of the world's greatest, had astral projection induced at an early age by a mesmerist, William Livingston. Davis' first out-of-the-body experience was that of moving through the air in a spiral direction. Okay. All right, you guys start thinking about, as I'm explaining these, start thinking about things that have happened to you in your body. And I'll tell you another story, too, that's funny. Another projection is called instantaneous astral exteriorization. A violent blow, especially to the head, or any extreme shock, wherein unconsciousness ensues as a consequence, is another common cause of instantaneous astral projection. If you wish to try a simple formula for instantaneous astral projection, allow one of your buddies, or preferably some enemy, to strike you over the head with a baseball bat, a percussive blow. This is about the most simple method, but since you might not be conscious while exteriorized, it might perhaps be best to follow some of the formula which will be given later. You're unconscious, so you're not going to be conscious in your astral body if you're knocked unconscious. To speak seriously, however, it is true that a vigorous blow or jolt will often cause a speedy and ephemeral separation, with the victim be aware of it or not. And he tells a story about how this happened. A neighbor, a man of 70, whose present home is within sight of where I write this account, related an event to me which was purely a case of ephemeral and instantaneous astral projection of the conscious type. He had hitched his team one wintry day and gone into the country after a load of firewood. On his return, he was sitting atop the loaded sleigh. A light snow was falling, and without warning, a hunter, who had happened to be near the road, discharged his gun at a rabbit. The horses jumped, jerking the sleigh and throwing the driver to the ground head first. He said, when he told me of the accident, that no sooner had he landed upon the ground than he was conscious of standing up and seeing another self. Lying motionless near the road, face down in the snow, he saw the snow falling all about his body. He saw the steam rising from the horses. He saw the hunter running towards him. All this was very exact, but his great bemuddlement was that there were two of him, for he believed at the time that he was observing all that occurred from another physical body. So he didn't even know that he was in his astral body. So he's probably looking at himself on the ground like, who's this guy? As the hunter came near, things seemed to grow dim. The next conscious impression he had was of finding himself upon the ground with the hunter trying to revive him. What he had seen from his astral body was so real that he could not believe that there were not two physical bodies, and he even went so far as to look for tracks in the snow and the place where he knew that he had been standing. Has anybody ever had that happen? Just curious. Anybody got smacked up on the head or hit hard enough where they're, like flatliners, right? Like where they projected out? Not this guy. That hasn't happened to me. I hope I don't ever have to do that. I'm totally for void walking, but flatlining, not really. That's some pretty intense stuff, man. The nothing. He says the duration of such an instantaneous astral projection depends upon the severity of the concussion causing it. Yeah. Probably everyone at some time in his life encountered a jolt that made him see stars, as the saying goes. The glow seen in his aura and is visible for an instant as the two bodies discoincide for a second. The same glow in the greater expanse can be seen for a longer time when the projection is conscious at the beginning of a prolonged separation. The astral phantom is so very much our very self that we do not realize how bound up in it we are. We do not seem to comprehend that we are using it this very moment. Even now, as you listen to Lighting the Void, you're in your astral, not your body. Your body is just the thing that it runs. We do not seem to comprehend that we are using it this very moment. It is our life, this astral body. And when it permanently severs from the physical body, that physical body is of no account. I wish I could convince you, reader, void walker, YouTube listener, radio station listener, that this phantomous body is not a new entity, which you will acquire in the future. It is the you of the present. It is you, who you are, the you of now, your animation, your consciousness. Without the astral body, your physical anatomy would be but a crude mass of insensible material lying inert in the power of gravity. This phantom becomes accustomed to the habits it has formed by being coincident with or merged into the physical and made to conform to the laws applying to the physical world and the physical body. When something unusual or unnatural occurs to upset the harmony of the physical, a shock, a jolt, a broken habit, an intense unappeased desire, a sickness, in fact, anything which could cause a lack of perfect material coordination, there is always a jar to the astral self. Some of these concussions could be a sudden force unexpectedly exerted against the body while it is moving in a given direction. This will not instantly interrupt the astral, and the latter will continue for an instant to move in the given direction, bringing itself momentarily out of coincidence. That's crazy. It says it's very short-lived, though. All right, story time. So I used to paint houses for a living, right? And I had a painting company, but we had this guy, and I won't say his name because, hell, I love the guy, but he was kind of slow and he drank a lot. But he told me the story one time, and this was before I knew about astral projection. So if you've ever painted or put epoxy on swimming pools, you know how bad that stuff smells. You should use a respirator if you're ever putting any kind of epoxy on, because it's terrible for your lungs and your brain too. But anyways, I was asking him about it, and he said, yeah, I've experienced that once. And he goes, when you can see yourself rolling that you need to do something because you're about to die. I said, what are you talking about? And it actually happened one day. We were putting epoxy on, and you know the sound of a roller, right? When it's rolling up and down, especially if you're using something like really wet. But he wasn't wearing a respirator, and I heard the roller slide like, whoosh, and I turned around and he's just laying on the ground. So me and a buddy of mine, and this was in the union, we pulled him out, and he finally came to, and he said, man, and he's just looking, smiling. I said, dude, you got to wear a respirator when you're putting this epoxy on. It's going to kill you. He goes, yeah, it happened again. I told you, when you can see yourself rolling on the wall, you better catch up to your body or you're in trouble. And at the time, I knew nothing about astral travel. I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, I'm telling you, I saw myself rolling the epoxy. So he gotten so high from this epoxy that his etheric double popped out. Like it just was done with all this crap going on to the brain. And he saw himself rolling the epoxy on the swimming pool and then fell over, right? Because the vapors had gotten to him so bad. Yeah, that's some intense stuff. All right, here's another one. I feel bad because I was just laughing at him back then when it happened, but he probably damaged his brain pretty bad. And you got brain damage too when one of your pupils is bigger than the other one or smaller than the other one. That's when you need to go see a doctor. All right, so an astral projection caused by a misstep. Here's an example of how an unexpected jar will throw the phantom out of coincidence. One night, a few years ago, I was coming down the stairs of my home. I had been sleeping and was still quite drowsy. There were 15 steps, and I had trodden up and down them hundreds of times, having lived in the house all of my life. Just why, I do not know, but as I reached the bottom step, I tried to take another step. Yeah, I've done that too. I did that the other night. Many of us have done this, and the impetus jarred me vigorously. A breathtaking sensation shot through the pit of my stomach, and even before the physical dropped to the floor, I found myself projected from it in a perfectly conscious state. And I don't mean that I thought I was conscious. I mean that I was conscious. I both saw the physical mechanism fall to the floor and also felt it fall while standing several feet from it. Let me analyze this and see what actually happened, for by doing so, we shall discover the fundamental law of astral projection. So I did that the other night during the show. It's funny. I know. How can you not laugh at people when they misstep like that? Okay. He's going to explain how this happens. So you ready? It must be understood that it is not the conscious mind which causes projection, but it is the subconscious will. We can walk by conscious effort, but we usually walk unconsciously under the subconscious will. It is when the body is under subconscious motivation and an unexpected barrier intercepts the physical that the astral body keeps on moving in the given direction for a moment. This is the fundamental law of astral projection. If propulsion were consciousness, this would not happen. And descending the stairs, had I been stepping consciously, this misstep would have been avoided. But the descent was unconscious, under the control of the subconscious will, and when the barrier, or the floor, interrupted the physical, the subconscious will was still under the inclination to descend and actually moved the astral body out of coincidence with the physical. This same principle applies to the separation brought about by a moving force colliding with an inert body. This makes so much sense. I'll tell you why in a second. The inert body stands under subconscious will. When the colliding force meets the physical body, the subconscious will is under the inclination to remain in its given position until the conscious moves it. Thus the phantom stands while the material is thrown out of coincidence. By analyzing the cause of instantaneous or insignificant separation, the following conclusions become self-evident. The body, or number one, the body, the coinciding bodies of the astral and the physical bodies, can move both unconsciously. 2. The body can move unconsciously when the conscious mind is functioning. 3. The body, get the fuck out of here, get out of here. It's like a freaking spider in my face or something. The body can move unconsciously when the conscious mind is not functioning, which is somnambulism or sleepwalking. 4. When the body moves unconsciously, it is the subconscious will which moves it. Which brings us to the bedrock rule of astral projection. If the subconscious will becomes possessed of the idea to move the body, or the coinciding bodies, the two bodies together, and the physical counterpart is incapacitated, the physical side, the subconscious will moves the astral body independent of the physical. That's it. That's the laws of astral projection. If the subconscious will becomes possessed of the idea to move the body, and when he says the body, he's talking about both your physical body and your astral body. So you're moving those two bodies, the coinciding bodies. But the physical counterpart becomes incapacitated. Yet the subconscious will is still moving the astral body independent of the physical. Intentional and unintentional projection both result from the same causes. This is the fundamental law of astral projection. So how do we do it? That's the big question. So he's already talked about all of the causes and stuff, right? All right, let me get to we can get into the subconscious or the hypnagogic state later, but that's exactly what happens, right? So the other night, I think it was Jane that was in the chat asking, well, how do we actually get out of body when the vibratory state happens? The key there is once you start, like let's say you're trying to peel yourself out of the body and you've done it 100 times and it never works. Either you're too paralyzed and you can't move, or you fall asleep, or you might get halfway out, but you never get fully out. And all kinds of things happen. You have to know when the physical body is fully incapacitated enough that the will of your subconscious moves the body. So, for example, when I had the astral projection, when I sat up, I thought for sure that it didn't work. It felt like my physical body. In fact, so much so, I felt no separation from the physical body whatsoever. But I kept moving. Even when I put my elbow down, I didn't stop. Like I kept the inertia going the whole time. It's a thing that they do in jiu-jitsu too. Never stop the inertia. Keep moving, right? Don't turtle out. Well, it's the same thing. Like if you start vibrating to the point where you're totally paralyzed. The body is turned off. So your brain has told the physical body to go to sleep. Sleep. That's when the vibration happens. You have to figure out when you, as a person, is the physical body's totally incapacitated, but at the same moment that you're awake enough in the unconscious or astral that you can still keep moving. So what you're really telling yourself is sit up. Just like you would tell your normal physical body right now to sit up, right? Just sit up. It's no different, except what he's saying is that's, I hope you get it, that when you do that, you're always moving these two bodies all the time. The etheric body and the physical. When the physical becomes incapacitated and you tell yourself to sit up, you're not aware, at least I wasn't at the time, the first time I astral projected, I wasn't aware that I was telling both bodies to sit up. I just thought I was telling myself to sit up. That's why I didn't feel anything. But when I turned around and saw myself sleeping, that's what happened. So he just gave the law of astral projection in the etheric right there, right? You guys, what are y'all talking about in chat? Love and feminine stuff? That's what they say, man. You're always halfway in, right? So we can get to this place, right? We can get to that place that I'm talking about in the hypnagogic state. That's the next part of this book. When consciousness is present from the very beginning of an exteriorization, the etheric body aggression begins in the hypnagogic state, which is the borderland between the conscious and the unconscious. That's a beautiful way to put it. Before going to sleep, Walsh says this: before going to sleep, we must pass through an unnoticed stage of half waking and half sleeping, termed the hypnagogic state. We must pass through a similar stage before we awaken. And usually the hypnagogic state lasts but a few seconds, but it may be prolonged for such as long as 15 minutes. It is apt to be longer when passing from the sleeping to the waking state than in reverse. So as sleep is coming on, the sensation of falling may be experienced. This is occasioned by the general relaxation of the muscular system, which occurs at this time. Should a person be much disturbed while in the hypnagogic state, the normal transition from waking to sleeping, or the reverse, may be markedly disordered. Consciousness may fully awaken, but the motor centers may awaken more slowly, and this causes a temporary paralysis of the limbs, speech, and consequently an inability to move or talk. This form of paralysis is called nocturnal paralysis by some writers. So, I mean, we all know what that is, right? We've talked about that a million times. I want to find this picture of the before we get out of here, where he says, I mean, we didn't read about it tonight, but I'd like to talk about it one night, where he says the cord is. Let me see if I can find it. I can't believe I hadn't found this book, man. I thought Robert Monroe's books were the oldest. But this is like the OG. Oh, here it is. Let me see if you guys, can y'all see this? Let me get to the scene. Y'all want the details? What do you mean? Just jump in the after. I can tell you guys in the after show chat if you want, in the Discord. Look at this. Look where he says the cord is, the astral cord. Let me see if I can zoom in on this. Now think about all the books that we read about Manly P. Hall, Vera Stanley Alder, The Finding of the Third Eye, all this stuff, right? The fact that I never saw the astral cord. And he has a whole chapter on this, how it thickens the closer you are to the body, and it gets like spider web like the further out you get. And he's got a whole chapter on this. We'll go over it. But supposedly, when you start floating above your body into your etheric double, the cord goes from the third eye into the cerebral cortex of the etheric body. And this thing stays attached to you the whole time. Now, if people are really seeing a cord at their stomach, how was this guy and others, even in the occult world, talking about the cord that is right here? This makes me wonder if the cord is even real at all. Or if one of them is lying or not telling the truth. Why am I showing you my radio station software? That's weird. Or one of them are lying and not telling the truth. Or if the other one, or if they're taking their beliefs about the cord into the astral realm. Right? Like, if you believe enough in it, it might show up in the astral. I don't know. I have some questions for you, Joe. What was the lighting like in your OBE? What was the detail like? High def colors, more wind. Also, what about sounds? What did you hear? So I was on the couch in the living room. When I sat up, I remember I was wearing a red shirt and black shorts, and when I sat up, I felt no different. It was dead quiet, silent, like the kind of silence that if you've ever been up north in a deep snow, it's been snowing for a long time and the snow finally stops and you go outside at like 2 a.m. and there's no sound. You can't even hear the humming in your ears. It's that quiet with a light little kind of staticky buzz, kind of like you're just coming off of acid. The colors and everything that I saw, like as far as how real it was, is just as real as what we're seeing right now, if not a bit more vivid and a bit more sharp, almost equally real. But maybe if you turn like the sharpness up just a little on the reality of television, Yeah, I'll be in the after show chat. We just got to roll out of here. I don't want to get in the habit of going over 2 hours just yet. Until we get to a certain level practically. We get to a certain level practically, and man, I'll be here. We'll be doing shows all night, 5 nights a week, whatever. I'll be able to have somebody record the freaking podcast and all that stuff. But either way, yeah, we got to roll out of here. But I want you guys let me know what you guys want to do. But I want to go over that chapter over the cord, the astral cord, because he says it comes out of the body in the third eye and attaches to the back of the head on the etheric, which would make sense. Yeah, nobody talks about it anymore. And you know what I think that is, Grant? It's because nobody can see it. It's right behind your head. Do you ever, like in your waking life, how often do you think about the back of your head other than scratching it? And if it's etheric, it's not like you're going to feel it. Anyways, trippy thought, right? Trippy thought. Yeah, we're gonna roll out of here. Shit. It's just a dream anyways, right? Even this show, it's not even real. It's just a dream. You need to wake up. Good night, y'all. Sweet dreams. Love you. See you tomorrow night. Coming to the after show chat in the Discord. Make sure you join the Discord. Night night.